Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, the history of the English language, or as we called it in grad school, HEL. I want to start off by giving you a few fun facts about the English language. First, which country do you think has the most people who speak English? If you guessed the United States, Stephen, you're wrong. China has the most English speakers and India has more than the US too. There are over 500,000 words in the English language today, and that's more than, I think, 5 times the amount that were in the language in Shakespeare's time. You are extremely lucky, assuming you've grown up here in the United States, to have grown up in a native English-speaking environment. English is the language of international business. The problem is when English speakers get arrogant and proud and laugh at Chinese doctors who may struggle with pronunciation or don't know what the word twerk means. He doesn't know twerk. The English you have all grown up speaking is not standard American English. The English you've grown up speaking is an abomination. You and your friends may think you are all very cool and clever, and you may laugh at a native Spanish speaker who says, "walked." But in many cases, people who learn English as a second language learned standard American English. And those Chinese doctors probably speak better English than you do because they learned standard American English the correct way. The world runs largely on English, and if you learn to speak it, and more importantly, write it properly, then there is no limit to what you can achieve in your education or life. I will get on that soapbox several times because you should have respect for English language learners. There's an old joke one of my Spanish teachers told me in high school that I still use today. What do you call someone who speaks 2 languages? Stephen? Yeah. You call them bilingual. What do you call someone who speaks 1 language? Mono? No. You call them American. Me slapping. But it's sad. English language learners are doing something very difficult because English is a stupid language. You heard me right. English is a stupid language. It is also the second most difficult language to learn in the world. The only language more difficult to learn than English is Mandarin Chinese. So the next time you want to snicker at an English language learner for mispronouncing a word, remember that he or she is doing something harder than you are. Unless you're trying to learn Chinese. In that case, my hat's off to you. So, English is a stupid language. You will hear this all semester. Today we're going to learn why English is so stupid. Unlike many other languages, like Chinese, which evolved mostly in isolation, or French or Spanish, which came almost directly from Latin, the history of the English language will show you why English is stupid, why we have to have spelling tests, and why it's so difficult for non-native English speakers to understand what's going on. English is stupid because there are no rules. And when there are rules, there are always exceptions. Sometimes it seems like there are more exceptions than rules, so it's hard to know what's going on. Anyway, I've preached too much for the first slide. Let's go through and learn ourselves some history. Okay, guys, let's put our thinking caps on. Can you tell me what country the English language came from? That's right, England. You know, in my face-to-face classes, my students have had trouble answering this question. And just so you know, the flag on the left, this side, maybe, the flag on the left is the flag of England. It's white with a red cross. Does anyone know what the flag on the right is? You? No? Okay, it's not Australia. The flag on the right is the Union Jack. It's the flag of the United Kingdom, or the UK. Which is what's left over of the British Empire. The countries currently in the British Empire are England, or UK, England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, and the full name, Northern Ireland, and the full name of the UK is actually the United Kingdom of Britain and Northern Ireland. Did you know America used to be part of the British Empire? You didn't? More on that later. Alright, this is always a fun exercise. You guys are so used to Google Maps that you don't actually know where anything is anymore. Can you point to England on this globe? Can you point to America on this globe? Okay, let me help you. England is part of this continent. Do you know which continent this is? That's right, it's Europe. Now, where in Europe is England? And no, the boot is Italy. That's Italy. So where in Europe is England? It's right here. Okay. It's this island. Very good, Steve. Steve is my pretend student. All right. England is on these little islands off the coast here. But England is only part of the island. It's only around 50,000 square miles, which is about the same size as Alabama. Right here. It's funny that this little country once dominated more territory in the world than any other country in history, and has a huge influence on the world still. I shudder to think what would happen if one day Alabama decided to take over the world. All right. So let's talk about the native English people. Before the year 1066, the native English people all had immigrated from across the sea and mingled their cultures together. These people were known as the Anglo-Saxons. There were also the Jutes, but no one wants to say Anglo-Saxon Jutes. It's just too much. So for simplicity, I will refer to the Anglo-Saxons as barbarian dudes for the rest of this video. So the barbarian dudes came over here. They came over and lived in thatch-roofed cottages like this one. You can see in the picture, that's a thatched roof. Right? And you see they came over here. This is Denmark. They came over and settled all around England. All right. Many people assume, here is what their soldiers look like. Awesome barbarian dudes with swords and spears and shields like that. Right? Now, hold on. Bless me. All right. What language did the Anglo-Saxons or barbarian dudes speak? It wasn't modern English. It was Old English. Oops. Many people assume that Old English is how Shakespeare must have talked. Basically, English with a bunch of these and thous, or how they read letters home from soldiers in the Civil War with a whole lot of curled parchment and sepia tones. Well, this is wrong. Old English is much older than that. It's also much more different than the English Shakespeare spoke and the English we speak today. Old English is not even recognizable as English. At its roots, it's a Germanic language, and this is why it's such a difficult language to learn, because a lot has happened to it since Old English was spoken. The video here, let me see if I can watch it. Let's see if we can watch this video.
Fact. We gathered there, jävlar, folkkunniga, frågefröna, huvudädelningens äldrefrämjande, och tjejarnas lärdom, någon och majdom, medelsökla oftea. Så det evas, sidan gällas med färsakfunden, hittas förfängad, welksdågnon, welkmindelsaag, och het Bible, Sarah University, of a grandfather.
Okay, so that's Old English. Old English is not even recognizable as English. It's actually closer to German or Dutch, and that's true. English, at its roots, is a Germanic language, and this is why it's such a difficult language to learn, because a lot has happened to it since Old English was spoken. I've read all this already. The video here is of a professor reading Opening Lives of Beowulf, which you were probably supposed to read in high school but didn't, and it's in its original Old English. Listen to it and see if you can make out any of the words while we just listen to it. If any of you are familiar with Gaelic or modern-day Welsh, this may sound not so foreign to you, but for most of us here in America, this sounds like German. Well, it's because it's an early form of German. Now, I want you to write down the word walked, or imagine it in your mind. W-A-L-K-E-D, walked. I walked to the store. Okay, when I used to teach English to Spanish speakers, they would 9 times out of 10 pronounce this word walked. Okay. Why do you think that is? Look at the word. Now, before you just laugh and say, haha, stupid person doesn't know that we say walked. Duh. No. Look at the word. Why do we say walked? What letter in English makes that t sound? It's not ed. Okay? We pronounce it with a T sound, and think about other similar words. Walked, talked, gripped, slapped. Okay? They all end with ed, but we pronounce it with a T. This is because of the Germanic roots of English. To form the past tense in Old English, you would put a T at the end of some words. Then someone decided that in order for English to make sense as a language, they should spell it every past tense verb with ed. They changed the spelling, but we never lost the pronunciation. One reason English is the second most difficult language to learn is that none of our words are pronounced like they are spelled. In Spanish, every word is pronounced exactly as it is spelled. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, so for hundreds of years, the Anglo-Saxon barbarian dudes were living on the British Isles in their thatch-roofed cottages, and we don't really know what they were like. Beowulf is one of the few writings that we have from this time. But there was something going on in Europe while these barbarians were fighting each other in Britain. The Old English word Anglaland means land of the Angles, the Anglo part of Anglo-Saxon, and that's where England gets its name. Okay. So what was going on was the second largest empire in human history, the Roman Empire. By the time the Romans got to England, they had pretty much conquered everything else. Rome, however, never fully conquered England. Never. They showed up a couple of times, conquered a lot of land to the south, then their legions would get called back to the continent to do more important things. England was like the ultimate frontier for the Romans. It was a scary place full of hills and trees and lots of barbarian dudes. There was a famous disappearance, I believe, of the 13th Legion, and nobody really knows what happened to them. The picture on the right here is from the movie Centurion, which is about the legion that disappeared in England. So here we can see Hadrian's Wall. It shows how far Rome got by 122 AD, and Antonine's Wall shows how far they got by 142 AD. Notice Scotland never really got fully conquered by England. So Rome fought with some of the barbarian dudes. They traded with others. They were allied with others. These barbarian dudes were still speaking Old English. But does anyone know what language Romans spoke? Yeah? No, Steve. Roman is not a language. They spoke Latin. Okay? Some of you may have studied Latin in school. Many, many words in English are derived from Latin, and this is why. English changed a lot in around 500 years as the Romans ruled the area. But then, in the 5th century, Emperor Honorius sent a letter to Britain telling the soldiers to leave, and the Roman citizens there that they were pretty much on their own against the Anglo-Saxons, and the Roman legions, they packed up and left. So there were these Old English-speaking barbarian dudes, and these Roman citizens that had been living in fortified cities and towns like Eboracum, which became York, Durovernum Cantiacorum, which became Canterbury, and Londinium, which became London. So these were Roman cities that just became the cities in England that we know today. That's it for part 1, but there is part 2 of this lecture. Look for HEL Lecture part 2. That should be in the same folder.